by the year 2025, which is actually not that far down the road, my generation will have retired, and that 75% of the workforce will be a millennial, Generation Z or later. That's quite scary. In some respects, we're going to have a millennial with his finger as the US president on the button. That's scary, but probably less scary than the current guy. But that's
Your background is in human resources, right? So you're actually the right person to speak about how people will work in the future, in the sense that there's this plethora of co-working spaces which have opened all over. In India, you have about 530 players, I think, right now, who are actually in the co-working. And on one side, I think it has also led to kind of like a subculture of non-stop work. You're always working. You're kind of encouraged to work from a train, from bus, from here, the cafeteria, everywhere. And have we lost the plot in terms of understanding that people also need to relax, people also need to rest?
I think so. I mean, I've been in the human capital world 30 years. I'm very old. But 2 years ago, I set up a network of co-working spaces in Colombo, Sri Lanka, called Business Hubs. And our tagline there is enjoy working differently. And I think the point that I realized from my recruitment days, or in my recruitment hat, is people want to enjoy working differently. They don't want this crazy hours that, my generation, the baby boomers, if you were committed, you were there 6 days a week, 12 hours, 14 hours, or you weren't a team player. Now they want to balance their social life. A lot of people have what we call portfolio careers, which means they'll work in one business 2 days, another business here, and they'll have their own startup that they're doing as well. So they'll have a mixture of careers that's differing. They won't stay to business 30 years or 20 years for the pension. They'll spend 18 months and move on. And the millennium time bomb, as I call it, not being disrespectful to millennials, I've got 2 millennial daughters, is that by the year 2020, as I'm sure you know, 30% of the management people in the world workforce, I think in India it's going to be higher, it's a younger workforce, will be millennials or Generation Z.
Right.
30%. By the year 2025, which is actually not that far down the road, my generation will have retired. And that big baby boom spike is about to fall off the employment. Nothing we can do about it. It is there, it's coming down the track like a train. And that 75% of the workforce will be a millennial, Generation Z or later. That's quite scary. In some respects, we're going to have a millennial with his finger as the US president on the button. That's scary, but probably less scary than the current guy. But that's going to happen.
Right.
And the millennials are probably the most socially connected workforce ever. My daughters take pictures of their lunch and put it on Instagram. And I type, who gives a damn? You're eating pizza. So what? But they do. They want to be in an environment where their buddy works there and their boyfriend works there and they can meet for drinks and lunch together. And I think if you're an employer of the future, and unless you want to turn your back on 70% of the available workforce in a high-skill demand job, you've got to adapt and improve. You've got to create workplaces where people want to come to work.
So in that sense, I think all the 70% of those people will also not be working as part of the formal workplace, in the sense that I think about half of them will be probably freelancers or digital nomads, or
location-independent working is
now. So we're still okay, I think. We'll not have 70%. Maybe half of those will be working in co-working spaces.
Yeah, some will be in co-working. Most jobs, or a lot of jobs nowadays, you can do from a smartphone anywhere in the world. I travel a lot in my job. I'm on the phone a lot. My wife, my mother say, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm actually working. This is what I do for a living. I'm sending an email and I'm working." So long as my phone is in my pocket, I don't even need a Wi-Fi connection. As long as I've got an internet connection, I can work. So a lot of people, whereas they were taking gap years, we're now seeing people taking location-independent years. Go travel, go to Sri Lanka, go to Goa, go to Chiang Mai or Bali, but to keep working. We don't want to lose you because you're a highly skilled person. That's going to cost us a lot to re-employ. So the training that we've invested in, the recruitment fee. So we're talking to companies about enjoy working differently, be smart as an employer, provide an environment, a work style, a workplace where people want to come and work for you, because they will. And millennials vote with their feet. If they don't like it, they get up and go. I'm not getting the career progression I wanted. Well, you've only been here 4 months. They're very impatient people. I'm not saying they're wrong, but that's the nature of the beast.
And because I think they have the freedom to decide where, when, and how they want to work.
Yep.
What is also happening is that I think a lot of them are working from somewhere else, and the need for real estate for corporates is also reduced. And this is probably leading to a scenario that where probably tomorrow we do not need as much real estate as we need today. And look at some industries, for example, the banking industry. I don't need to go to my bank anymore.
Yeah, it is. It's all going online. It's all digital. I think companies are now realizing they can be asset agile, as they call it. They don't need to sink lots of dollars into securing long leases, fitting out, and which is where the co-working industry comes into its own. And co-working, we had discussion today, means a lot of different things to different people, but flexible working, where a company can have a team working there for 3 months, and next month it needs to scale up, and then it can scale down. They can have that agility that they didn't have before, and to be very flexible. So I think the flexible work, the office is definitely here. People can work from home. I think the traditional method of working is changing, not has to change, is changing. And companies are realizing that. And very few, and they'll be like the dinosaurs that don't change. Very few companies are not changing because, people, they can't get the workforce, they can't get people. You've got to give people choice. And if you give people choice, they'll stay with you. It's not about what company car they get in or necessarily about how much money you're paying them. Are you giving them a lifestyle that they want? If they will, they'll stay with you. And you've got everything else, your environmental strategy and your CSR strategy. But a lot of the times is, how do you make me feel? Do I want to be part of your company and go on the journey with you? Or is somebody else offering me a better way where I can do my yoga and see my friends and do my photography in the afternoon if that's what I want to do?
There are very few dinosaurs. I think you're very right about that. I was in London a few months back, and I saw that a lot of the financial institutions who you would think that they would never change, and this is how they would continue to behave over and over again. In the heart of central London, in the financial district, they have adopted agile working practices. They're allowing people to work from home, which I think is largely also a factor of financial pressure on them. Real estate is too expensive in, say, in central London,
they're loving it. They don't
Mumbai. But you have to do that. You have to make your workplaces more efficient, right?
You can have a workforce of 1,000 people, but you no longer need 1,000 workstations. You can have 300 workstations, of which 100 might be there permanently because you need them, so HR and finance that are there all the time. The rest can be a dynamic workforce that come in and hot desk. We're seeing companies that lose the barriers and the physical, the partitions around the thing with the sign saying finance department or sales department. They mix them all up so they get to talk to the colleagues who might be in logistics and he might be in marketing. And the smart companies are the ones who see the benefits of that. The other ones that I've seen, Unilever actually runs a co-worker space within their own building. It's a genuine co-worker space. So they invite people from outside, disruptive thinkers, entrepreneurs, to come into their environment, to rub shoulders and sit side by side with their own employees. Now that's smart. And then they put their own smattering of brands like Ben & Jerry's there so that they can get the benefits. Well, he does R&D, he's our social media manager, and this guy's doing our so-and-so. But none of them are paid by Unilever. They're our suppliers. But they operate from our environment. And in return, we open the doors and say, hey, there's our big company. Come and supply us, come and help us. So it's a very efficient symbiotic relationship. And I think they're smart. They're way ahead of the curve. But the companies that do that, and we're talking to two in Sri Lanka, about creating innovation centers within their own environment, using this real estate that you've now got free because you've gone to an agile workforce, but now become quite smart and get these people to come in and work for you. You're not paying any salaries, but you're getting all of that work done, and they're using real estate that is otherwise sitting empty. That's smart.
It's like a lot of people try to understand the customers that you're selling your goods to, but the people within your organization, are you doing enough to actually understand them and their changing aspiration that the world changes around us?
That's right.
I feel not enough is being done in that side of things.
It isn't. I think it will change simply because of the workforce dynamic. As more millennials get into management roles, they know what they want. They want to have this social interaction. They want to have this environment where they can make a difference. So they will make a difference to their employers as the 50, 60-year-olds all retire. You know, the 30, 35-year-olds coming into management will say, well, that's great, but that's not how we want to work. This is how we want to work. And it'll change, and I think it's for the better. We're actually in the hospitality business. That's how I perceive it. We're in the hospitality business where we're not putting a body in a bed for the weekend and earning money off it. We're actually running an infrastructure where freelancers, small businesses, enterprise can come and run their operation from. And when we approach it, co-working from a hospitality perspective, and all my team come from a hospitality background, but I'm the only one who's not. I stay in a lot of hotels, and I know good service and bad service. Our whole attitude is totally different. I don't care if the Queen of England pulls up outside our space, the community manager shouldn't panic, because he knows that everything is to that level. The meeting room is ready, cups have been cleaned away, everything's working, everything's clean and tidy.
And that approach probably helps you use the infrastructure as a very, very powerful tool to actually boost productivity.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't get it. They think that real estate is an expense which is being managed by those backroom boys, and my valuation really comes from culture, it comes from brand identity, all of that. But space, and if you manage it properly, like you said you do, it can be a very, very powerful tool. Because it can design thinking, it can design the way you feel, the way you think.
Totally agree. I told you I had nothing to say on it. Who gives a damn? But that's my impatient manner. We'll edit that bit out.